In the year 2011, fate brought me to my future wife at a school social event where I was DJing. The speakers blasted out 90s rock hits as I spun records, including a particularly memorable performance of Third Eye Blind's Semi-Charmed Life. As the song played, a woman approached me and complimented my music selection. We struck up a conversation, bonded over our mutual love for the band, and eventually began dating. 2 years later, in 2013, we took a celebratory trip together and got engaged. On this trip, we created a cherished memory that we often recount, listening to the entire Third Eye Blind catalogue and passionately singing along to each and every song. That same year, we tied the knot in marriage. Throughout our 9-year journey together, one thing remained constant: our shared love for the band that brought us together. Whenever Third Eye Blind went on tour, we made it a priority to catch their shows. In total, we have seen them perform live 9 times, one for each year of our marriage. Each concert was an unforgettable experience filled with nostalgia and excitement, further strengthening our bond. Last night was supposed to be our 10th time seeing them in concert. As I did the quick math in my head, I realized that this summer marks our 10-year wedding anniversary. November will make a decade since we said our vows, and I had grand plans for a romantic celebration, starting with this show and ending with a luxurious night at a hotel. Even after a long day at work, my wife looked stunning as she got ready for the evening ahead. But then I saw a text notification pop up on her phone, and just like that, my perfect plans crumbled into dust. She had met someone the night before, while I was away for work. The worst part was the message she sent him: "Don't forget to bring condoms." And his response of lol cut through me like a knife. Did they even use them? It hardly seems to matter now. My heart is left shattered, and my mind is consumed with questions. What did they do together? How could she betray me like this? After reading that, I couldn't stay in the house any longer. My heart was racing and my mind was buzzing with excitement. I had to be there, at the concert. I quickly grabbed my things and headed out, feeling a surge of adrenaline as I walked towards the venue. The familiar sounds of people chatting and laughter filled the air around me. About 15 minutes later, my phone rang. It was her. "Where are you?" she asked. "On my way to the concert," I replied casually. "What? Why?" she sounded confused. "You know why," I said firmly, letting her think long and hard about my actions. With a deep breath, I hung up and continued on my journey, anticipation building with every step. The lights of the venue grew closer, and the sound of music grew louder. Despite the shock that still coursed through my veins, I maintained a cool exterior. However, there was a complex backstory lurking beneath the surface, one that I did not want to delve into. Memories of her past infidelities clouded my mind, causing me to feel numb and detached from the situation at hand. It wasn't until I started typing this that I finally began to feel something. As she called back, she attempted to justify her actions with flimsy excuses. "We're just friends," she claimed. "We didn't actually do it. I was drunk. It was just a little bit." Each word only served to fuel my anger and betrayal. And then came the condescending request for me to return and discuss things like adults, as if I were the immature one for having stormed out. At that moment, I knew that if I went back, it would only be to rehash her infidelity and engage in a futile attempt at reconciliation. The thought disgusted me. Never before had the idea of intimacy with my wife filled me with such repulsion. As I arrived at the concert venue, anticipation buzzed through my body. The ticket scanner's eyes flickered over my ticket before he hesitated and gestured to another person waiting behind me. confusion crept into my mind as I stared blankly at him, until he clarified, "There's 2 tickets." With a slight nod of understanding, I replied, "Yes, there are 2. A sense of unease washed over me like I was in a trance. The show itself was beyond words. Every note and lyric seemed to pulsate through my veins, igniting a fire within me. I glanced around and noticed the people in my row, all swaying and singing, along with smiles on their faces. We quickly bonded over our shared love for the music, laughing and cheering together. As some lyrics hit close to home, tears threatened to spill from my eyes, but were quickly replaced by joy and camaraderie. It was truly an unforgettable experience. The feeling of isolation weighed heavily on my chest, pressing down with each passing moment. Yet at the same time, I felt a pulsing sense of vitality coursing through my veins. At the concert, I merged with the crowd, moving and swaying to the beat of the music. At that moment, nothing else existed except for the electric energy that connected us all. But as quickly as it began, it was over. The rush dissipated, and I found myself yearning for a release. I considered sitting at the bar, drowning my emotions in alcohol, but the thought of interacting with anyone outside of the concert setting made me retreat into myself once again. My mind kept drifting back to the unanswered texts, adding to my sense of isolation and desperation. With a heavy heart, I made my way to the hotel room that had been booked for my wife and me. The familiar scent of her perfume lingered in the air, but she was not there. Instead, I lay alone in the cold, empty bed. The weight of her absence weighed heavily on my mind as I drifted off to sleep. The next morning, I woke up to a flood of unread emails. My wife had stayed up all night, feeling a roller coaster of emotions. Guilt, shame, anger, all directed towards me. It was surreal to read her messages, filled with resentment and frustration towards my actions of going through her phone. She pleaded and bargained for forgiveness, trying to make sense of what had happened. But the worst part was when she sent me cards that I had written for her years ago. Anniversary cards, birthday cards, Christmas cards, all adorned with heartfelt handwritten letters professing my eternal love for her. It used to be our tradition to write these cards for each other on every special occasion. But now, it seemed like those times were long gone and replaced with distance and detachment. She hadn't written me a card in years, a painful reminder of how things had changed between us. I think her intent was that upon reading the cards, my heart would soften and I would realize the depth of her love for me. The vibrant colors and delicate details on each card spoke to a shared history and a future full of promise. But as I read through them, my heart only grew heavy with the weight of realization. She didn't truly love me. It was a bitter pill to swallow, seeing all of our memories and moments together reduced to mere words on paper, and in that moment, forgiveness seemed impossible. I had already forgiven her once, and yet here we were again. How many more times could I go through this before enough was enough? I couldn't forgive her again. It wasn't just about this one instance. It was about the pattern that had emerged. Forgiveness would only lead to a cycle of hurt and broken promises. And so, with a heavy heart, I closed the cards and turned away, knowing that this time forgiveness wasn't an option. The only question that lingers in my mind now is whether I have enough self-respect to ensure that this never happens to me again. Will I hold myself accountable and make the necessary changes to prevent history from repeating itself? The weight of this decision hangs heavily on my conscience, a battle between pride and self-preservation. But one thing is certain, I refuse to let myself be put in this situation ever again. Update. Hello everyone. It's been a little over a month since D-Day, and I have been receiving an overwhelming amount of support and questions in my inbox. So, I thought it was time to share an update. This past month has felt like an eternity, each day dragging on endlessly. Being away from my own home and staying with my parents has made the days seem even longer, but finally I am starting to feel like myself again. My emotions have settled, and I am no longer consumed by thoughts of my soon-to-be ex-partner. The pain may still be there, but I am now able to face it with a steely resolve. I met with a cold-faced lawyer whose sharp pen drafted the papers that would tear apart our marriage. But as I sat in the sterile office, I couldn't help but wonder if my soon-to-be ex-wife even knew about it. From what I understand, the service of the divorce papers hasn't even been rendered yet. And I can see why. Her behavior has become completely manic. How do I know? Well, it started with a barrage of emails, 19 to be exact, that flooded my inbox in the span of just 10 minutes. Each one contained a picture from our once happy relationship or a recent snapshot taken on her phone. The subject lines varied, some pleading for reconciliation, while others lashed out in anger. But all of them were signs of her deteriorating mental state. These are the emails that I received. I am just reading the content in each of them. 1. I've been working on myself, and we can do butt stuff. Picture of her dinner. 2. Studying all day and night and working on science. Picture of a whiteboard with nonsense on it. 3. Barista and biochemist. Miss you, though. Picture of her coffee. 4. I painted this. The attached picture was a work of fine art. She certainly didn't paint. 5. And I take care of my family. Picture of wind chimes. 6. And I made 50k to be a model for this. Lol. No, she didn't. 7. I'm sorry, I'm just sad about Grandma and Andy. Andy died 20 years ago. 8. And I learned how to cook Japanese. Picture of store-bought sushi. 9. And I sold my first photograph for 10k. Lol. No, she didn't. 10. And I cook vegan in Napa, a bowl of soup. 11. You can lick my butt, and I'll lick your butter. I'm free at 4:20 at our house. Picture of a beer can. 12. I'll never cheat again. I'm sorry. 13. Wearing this one kills me. It was just her outfit. Now, I'm not looking for nudes or sexy photos from her or anything. But if she's trying to get me back, she won't even send me the same level of shit she was sending her affair partner. She would send them nudes and explicit photos, and I've never gotten those in our entire relationship, even when we were first dating. 14. 4 kids. This was a picture of our cats. 15. We can have a baby too. This one wasn't a picture, but had the text. I'm sorry for being bipolar. I'll be nicer and go to the mental hospital. 16. Mental health matters. Hope you get help for bipolar too. Miss you. This is her accusing me of being bipolar. 17. Final message had the subject. I will never cheat again, and you can do my butt. As I listen to her rant and rave, my conclusion is clear. She is completely unhinged. Every word that spews from her mouth only confirms why I ended things with her. The way she obsesses over past actions and events, it's almost like she's in a manic state, but the mention of Anil catches me off guard. It was never something we discussed or even tried, so why would she bring it up? The thought that she may have done it with her affair partner makes my stomach turn. How could she do something so intimate and personal with someone else? It's repulsive. Messages come a couple days later. I'm pregnant. It's not my ex from 13 years ago, so I don't know why you are so fucking nuts. Are you gonna help me get an abortion or not? Beyond her unexpected call to my work phone and the ensuing voicemail, she also sought out my attorney and claimed that he advised against our divorce. She twisted his words, stating that two people who love each other should not get a divorce, and they should stay together and get counseling, even though he never said such a thing to her. But wait, there's more. As if this manipulative behavior wasn't enough, there's another layer to this deceitful cake, or rather 2 layers, the icing and the filling, but I'll address that in a moment. As I was leaving work on Thursday, exhausted from another long day, my phone rang. The caller I'd read police, a contact that had become all too familiar in recent months. They were well acquainted with our situation, having been called to our home by my wife countless times. With a heavy sigh, I answered the call and was met with an apologetic voice. "So, your wife is claiming that you forcibly entered the house using a key and stole an antique doll dress." The words hung in the air for a moment before sinking in. The absurdity of the accusation brought a mix of frustration and disbelief. How could she possibly think I would do something like that? The image of our peaceful home being broken into flashed through my mind as I tried to process the situation. Despite the annoyance, I couldn't help but feel a tinge of sadness at how far things had deteriorated between us. I explained to the officer that I did not enter the house, and even if I had, it would have been within my legal rights, as I am on the lease, paying the rent, and there are no restraining orders prohibiting me from entering the premises. The officer agreed with me, and I thanked him for doing his job. Despite what some may say about all cops being bad, these officers have shown great understanding in this situation. However, now I must speak with my lawyer on Monday, because this whole ordeal is absolute bullshit. So, here's the icing on the cake. As the clock struck 11 p.m. on Friday, I turned another year older, reaching the milestone age of 37. Unlike previous birthdays filled with laughter and celebrations, this one was spent mostly alone. In the midst of my solitude, a familiar ringtone pierced the silence. It was her. My heart raced with anticipation as I answered the call, hoping for a warm birthday wish from my loved one. But to my disappointment, her voice was cool and demanding. She had no well wishes for me, only a request for money. As she ranted on about unpaid bills and her supposed starvation, a sinking feeling settled in my stomach. This was not the birthday call I had been hoping for. It was another reminder of the financial burden she placed on me and the constant pressure to provide for her every need. With a heavy heart, I listened to her voicemail once again before hanging up, feeling drained and unappreciated on my special day. She didn't even acknowledge my birthday, not even with a simple greeting. It was almost comical. In her efforts to win me back and earn my favor, she couldn't even manage to do something as basic as wishing me a happy birthday. It just further emphasized how broken our relationship had become, and how little effort she was willing to put into fixing it. Despite everything, I am holding up well. Last night, I attended a Jimmy Eat World concert at the Man in Philly, flying solo as always. I had purchased the tickets weeks ago, and once again had to endure the uncomfortable exchange with the ticket attendant who asked about my second ticket, only to be met with my response of just me. But as it turned out, I had more fun by myself than I have had with my wife in a long time. The music filled my soul, and I let loose, dancing all night without a care in the world. At one point, a woman approached me and said with a laugh, "You look like a hot bowl of soup." It was an odd compliment, but it made me smile and added to the already lively atmosphere of the concert. If I were in a better headspace, I probably would have had the courage to talk with her. But my divorcing status seems to repel people like kryptonite. No one wants to deal with that kind of baggage, and I can't blame them. It's just another reminder that I'm alone, with no prospects for dating in the foreseeable future. At this point, it feels like I'll be single until I turn 40. And even then, Having kids is looking less and less likely unless I find someone much younger. As I sat at the hibachi grill on my birthday with my family, surrounded by other groups celebrating their special day, I couldn't help but envy the 80-year-old woman at a nearby table who had multiple generations of family members with her. Will I ever have that kind of love and support? Or will I only have my sister if even she still remains in my life? But let's not dwell on that too long. Thank you for sticking around and listening this far. Maybe someday soon there will be some progress on the divorce front. Until then, I'll just keep trudging along and hope for the best. Finally, the tale comes to a heartbreaking close. Of all the stories I've reported on, this one is by far the most tragic. Despite the betrayal and relentless barrage of mental emails, the official poster remains steadfast. What are your thoughts on this story? I implore you to share your feedback and advice in the comments below. The ending leaves a heavy ache in my chest, and I can only imagine what it must be like for the guy involved.